tell you that my first experience with hypnosis was when I was 30. That was almost 15 years ago. That's when it started for me. Now looking back, I know why it happened, of course. And there was a great hypnotherapist here in Holland, and I had some questions during my spiritual tour here on my own. I get little bits and pieces that brought me new questions, like peeling an onion. Every time you get a new layer, new questions. And so I did a lot of research and inner growth that I was looking for. And that brought me to a hypnotherapist here in Holland. And since childhood, I had, for instance, some fears and some issues with men. And I couldn't place it because I never had experience in the current life that had to make me feel this way. And with those questions, I went to the session, and directly in the session, I went to a story in the World War II, the Second World War, here in Germany. And I was a Jewish girl, and I was being captive in Poland, in what the camp is called Auschwitz, and in Birkenau with my family. And I can remember, I still have the drawings of it, because you have the memories, the visions during the session. But to keep that in memory, I have them drawn out. And the story was that I was a little girl in a big family. I had a lot of sisters and brothers. And my father had a store with clothing. And in that clothing store, he also did some mending and repairments of clothing. And I was poor in going to school. My teachings, so my learnings weren't that great. And I helped my father at that age, being very young, in his store at the sewing machine, restoring and mending clothing. And from one scene into another, it went all black, and there came fear. And I felt there was something going to happen, but it couldn't sense what it was. So we skipped the scene, go somewhere else, and there were I was in the middle of the street, and there was the rattling of a tank. The tank came up the hill, and I saw the gun from the front coming into the streets, and the Germans were picking everyone out of their houses to collect them. At first, only the men, and they get them from the families. The men had to go with the Germans. They were captured. And at that moment, my mother and my sisters and my little brothers, we had to fly, yes, run away, hide. And in that hiding spot, we were in a farm with some elderly people. We were betrayed, and the Germans came and took us. And we had to go on the train to Poland, to the concentration camp in Auschwitz, where we were put in barracks. First, we had to leave the train, go into sections, and they will divide the people that are able to work, and the elderly and the smaller children that were directly going to the gas chambers. And at that moment, I didn't know what was happening. I was around 16 years old, and there was an older man that told me, tell them what you can do to make yourself useful. Whatever occupation you can do, tell them that that you can help, that you can work, because only the people who can work stay alive. And I can do some sewing. So I raised my finger and I told them that I can mend clothing, that I can do some sewing work. And they picked me out, and I would go to the right. And at that moment, I saw my little brothers. They were twins, and they had beige coats, dark short hair, and they were holding hands, and they had to go to the left. And at that moment, I knew that I was never going to see them again. So it was a very emotional sighting. And in that camp, we all got sick. We had so little to eat, and we had to work very hard to stay alive. And at one moment in camp, there was this man, the soldier, SS soldier, and he had an eye on me. But he was also very rude in sometimes when other soldiers were there. And at one moment, he grabbed me with by the throat, and he pulled me up against the wall. And in the session, you could see here the red stripes of the fingers. So intense was it. And there was also a scene, and we went back to the blackness, that I was a little girl. I was on the table, and I was waiting for my father to enter the room. And there was a rape story. As a little child, I was raped over several years by my father because he couldn't get the love from my mother, his wife, and his sense of love was off. You don't show that kind of love to your children. You don't have sex with your children. But he had sex with me several years from being a little girl, and I got pregnant, and we took that baby to the light. But that's where the issues came in the current life with men, and I couldn't doubt it as long as I lived in this current life. But now, with doing this regression, this session, it makes sense. Now I felt and I saw, and especially I felt where it was coming from. And that healed me. That healed my relationship with men. I became more relaxed. I became easier to be around men, and to set my boundaries, what I liked and what I don't like. Because before that, when I was in a relationship with a man, I was married with the father of my children. So I had a relationship for several years, 16 years with a man. And I never really enjoyed it. And after the session, I was free from that feeling, from a little bit of fear, not wanting to, in disease. It was gone. It cleared it all. So to finish the story, in that session, as being a little Jewish girl in that concentration camp, the Russian came in to free us, and in that time the Germans were in a hurry to destroy the camp, to leave no evidence behind, and they drove us all to the gas chambers to destroy us, to destroy the evidence. And that's where I left my life. But with the healing that I had in the session, the physical healing, we set all my body and the soul in the golden light. We healed it all, and it was wonderful. You could feel the sensation of the energy flowing up and down in your body. Every cell was filled with it, and it healed. And all the dark energy from the pain and the fear that was left in that body, we all cleared it out.